And these are common bobbers that you buy when you're fishing with cane poles or light spinning gear, with, you know, live worms or a little jig or something. So we call them perch floats. For the perch float plopper I'm making today, I'm going to use the cigar shaped perch float made by Como. You could also use the teardrop one in a couple different sizes. You get 2 heads out of this body. I get these ones from this, they're pre-slotted. These I get online, and they come slotted already. Remove the pegs. Even though they're slotted, it's not a wide enough slot to accept the hook. So what I'm going to do is widen that hook slot, but it's worth it, just so that the line is drawn on it for you. If you were using one without a slot, you would take a pencil or pen and mark where your cut wanted to go. I like using this reciprocating saw blade. It's got a good width to it, and what you do is you file the waviness off. I don't know if you can see that shine on there along the edges, but reciprocating saw blades and hacksaw blades, they have like a little waviness into them. I'll take a steel file and file that waviness out so it's a straight saw blade. You could use a hobby saw. X-Acto makes some good hobby saws. This is just a good width, and I'll widen this hook slot. It's actually a slot for your line, so you don't have to thread it through the hole when you're using it as a perch float. You don't want to push too hard, because then the teeth will grab into the foam, so you just lightly saw it back and forth till it makes its way down to the hole, like so. I'm going to go ahead and cut the slope on the popper face. You can use this jig here, or you can just eyeball it. I mean, I just made this jig recently. I've been cutting popper faces for probably over 20 years and just eyeballed it, so that works fine. Fly Tying and Fly Fishing for Bass and Panfish by Tom Nixon. I just picked this book up recently. It's a great book. Tom Nixon's most widely known for his Calcasieu pig boat that he created when living in Lake Charles, Louisiana, and but he did a lot of work with popping bugs, and he has a little plans here for doing a jig. Now I modified it. He has it just sloped on one side. I decided to slope it on both sides of the jig, and so on this side I have more of an angle, so that way when you have a flat bug and it's laying flat, you get the correct slope on the face. And this side is as designed by Tom. It's a little more vertical, so when you put your bobber or your tapered cork body or whatever you're using, it's going to go up on an angle, and that vertical cut will still give you that good sloped angle. That's why you have to cut the slot first, so it sits on this guide, which is a cut hacksaw blade. On my guide, I have on my jig, I have marked a couple different hook sizes, so I don't have to measure it each time. And you just slide it on, line up the back of the bug with the hook size that you want to cut, and go ahead and here's where the width of that blade comes in handy. It just gives a better guide. Going down a jig, it slides on here better, and it's a little more rigid. And you just start off lightly. You don't want to push your saw too much into this foam, and you just lightly saw back and forth. with your blade held flush against the jig face. Till it cuts through. Flip it over and line up the back with your desired hook size. Size 2 and a size 1 is very close. And go ahead and cut your second body off that one cigar float. Just take the rough edge off of the face with a sanding pad. Run a folded sandpaper through your hook slot to get the loose foam out of that hook slot. Now at this point you can either leave it flat or you could cup it. You could leave the face of the bug flat or you can cup it. I use a Dremel. It's got a quick chuck on it, a keyless chuck. You just hold your button down and you turn it and it opens up the chuck so you can slide your bit into it. I like using this shape bit to make my use this shape bit to make the cup in the face. It's a good shape. You could do a multitude of sizes. Doesn't have to be very deep. You don't want to make it too deep, because in cupping the face you're also removing some of the flotation, so you don't want to make it. You don't want to remove too much flotation from the front of the bug. Just take these little bits and kind of brush them off like so. And you wonder about the hole. Well, you can leave the hole in, but I find on this size, on these cigar shaped floats, the hole is kind of small, and a lot of times it'll partially close when you're painting and epoxying it. So I prefer just to fill the hole. On a teardrop shape ones, the hole is much larger and you don't have a problem with it filling up, and almost always I'll just leave, when I make a popper out of this one, I'll just leave it I'll leave it open. These perch floats are very lightweight. It's a hard foam, but they're very lightweight and they cast real easy, and they're very durable. You can use whatever you have on hand to fill that hole with. I wound up finding this foam here in packing as cushioning in packing computer parts and stuff. You want to cut some strips of the foam, not quite 1/4 of an inch. Just slice down in there. A fillet knife works good for this too. I just don't have it handy right now. So that's about how thick you need it, and then just cut your strips off. Like so. And you're going to put this in the hole there. And what you do is twist one end of it to compress it. It'll expand back out again inside the hole. But you go ahead and squeeze it so you can get it going into the hole. Take a needle or your bodkin and just kind of feed it through here. If it's fatter, like this one's a little fatter, just kind of push it really tight. Squeeze it really tight as you're twisting it. Cut this excess off the front, like so, and take the end coming out the back of the bug and just pull it till the material is flush with the inside of the cup face, like that. Pull it real slow so you don't pull it through, and then when it's flush you just stop like that. Then go ahead and get a sharp blade and slice the back end off flush with the back of your bug. Like that. Alright, we're going to prepare the hooks to be glued into the head. For a hook, I really like the Mustad S71. It's the equivalent. It's a new Z steel hook. It's equivalent to their old 34007. It's a little bit stronger. I'm going to use a size 2 and size 1 since I cut the heads different. Now your head, you can kind of pre-fit your head just to make sure it works. You know, just stick it near the hook eye, and you want the head to not go past the hook point. Now the one that I thought I was cutting for a number 1, that's kind of close. That's kind of big for this size hook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut a little bit off the back. I probably should have tested it first, that way I could have cut it off the front, but that's fine. The head, the front will stay big. So I'm just going to cut some off, then I'll go ahead and round the edges off a little bit. Okay. It wasn't much, but I just like the way that fits a little better now. You got a little bit more room to tie your tail in, and it's just a little better proportion. Okay, to prepare your hook, use a heavy thread, 210 denier, Flymaster Plus is what I like. For your jam knot. And then I like doing a little open spiral wrap. Just about to your hook point. And then come back, open spiral. And whip finish. Okay, we're going to go ahead and glue the bodies to the prepared hooks. I'm going to use super glue. I prefer this extra thick formula. I use the Bob Smith Industries BSI CA glue. Fill your hook slot with the glue. It doesn't have to fill it all the way. You just go ahead and run a bead in there. The hook will push the glue down. You might have to wiggle it a little bit to get it into the hook slot. You want your hook to be towards the bottom of the body. That way it keels the body. The weight will be in the bottom of the popper head. And you want to center it on the hook. Go ahead, if you have any extra glue that came out of the hook slot, just kind of rub it back into there with the pin. And finish filling the hook slot with some glue. Like that. And go ahead and set it aside to dry. I like hanging them up on a little rack. You could make it with string, or bead chain works real good, or thin wire, whatever you have.